if you're into brewing and you're doing all grain, you certainly will begin to see the benefits of buying all of your ingredients in bulk. In this video, I want to show you how I handle all of my bulk supplies and what I do to keep them fresh and ready to brew. Now, one of the biggest things that buying in bulk will do is it'll save you some money. I'm not saying that brewing your own beer with the equipment costs and all that stuff is going to save you more money than just going and buying a six-pack, but you definitely know what ingredients are going in the beer and you know how fresh they are and all that stuff. So I certainly advocate getting your own ingredients in bulk. And so one of the things that I want to talk about first is grains. And the two things that I have used in the past are buckets, and then I recently got these Vittel Vaults. Now, the thing that makes the Vittel Vaults pretty cool is that they have a gamma lid on them. Now, these particular Vittel Vaults that I have, these are the 60-pound capacity, and they'll actually hold a 50-pound bag of grain with no problem. And so they have a screw-on lid, and you can see in here, this is 50 pounds of grain, and it fits in there with quite a bit of room to spare. So it actually works really well from that aspect. And I'll leave a link for all of these things down in the description below. The next thing, or the thing that I used previously before that, was the food safe buckets with the gamma lid as well. Now those have a screw-on lid just like the other ones do. And I use those also to hold grains, and I also use them to hold sacks of grain, and I'll explain a little bit more what I mean in just a minute here. Now the buckets, the 5-gallon buckets, they'll actually hold about 45 to 48 pounds of grain in the 5-gallon capacity. Now you can buy the buckets and the lids separately. I got these, I think, from Home Depot whenever I originally purchased them. Now, like most of us, you probably have a 5-gallon or 7.5-gallon, 7-gallon fermenter bucket, and like this one from Northern Brewer here. And this will actually, if you have a couple of these laying around, you could add these gamma lids to those and definitely hold 50 pounds of grain. Now, one of the other things that I like to do with these is that if I buy some grain, like let's say I buy 10 pounds of wheat malt or something like that, and I don't want to dedicate a container just for those, you could do a couple things, and one of those is you can vacuum seal them, but 5 pounds of grain, like let's say if I use half of the bag, 5 pounds of grain is quite a bit to put into a vacuum seal bag. So one of the things that I will do is I'll actually use the vacuum sealer, and this is like a 10-pound bag of grain, and I actually sealed the bag back up with the sealer. So as you can see, it's a 5-pound sack of grain, and I've cut the top off and then resealed it. Now you can do this for smaller bags of grain, and then what you can do is just throw these either up on a shelf or you can throw them in these containers, and they'll keep in there for probably, I would say, 6 months to at least a year if they're not crushed. Now, I recently found another option for holding some of the more adjunct grains. Now, you know, I don't buy adjunct grains in like 50-pound sacks. I'll buy them in like 1 pound or 5-pound sacks. And these containers, believe it or not, are very, very good for holding grain. Now these things are airtight. I've actually tested them with water, screw the lid on tight, and it actually won't leak water, so I know it's airtight. Now these actually got, believe it or not, at the Dollar Tree for $1 each. So they have the larger size, which is about, it holds about 4.5 pounds of grain. And then you've got the smaller size. This holds about 3.5 pounds of grain. And I find it's absolutely perfect for those adjunct grains that you purchase, like you might use, you know, 6 or 8 ounces out of a bag. If I'm going to brew a recipe over and over again, let's say it's a recipe that I like brewing, I'll go ahead and buy 3 or 5 pounds of grain, and usually as you buy it in larger bulk, you get a better price on it. So this is one of the things you can do to save a little bit of money, and then also you have plenty of stock on hand to brew. So what I'll do is I'll actually label those on the front with a label for what they are, and what I'm using for that is like a small P-Touch labeler, and it actually works really, really well. You can just type in there, print out what you want on there, and then put it in there, and put your, put it on the container, put your grains in there, and put those on a shelf, and you can kind of start to build your own home brew store, really. I mean, if you, let's say you go to a home brew store and you buy, you got a recipe you're going for, and, buy a little bit more, buy a little extra if you can afford it, And then, you know, let's say you get up one morning and you want to brew, but you don't want to go to the home brew shop. So you'll have a whole line of malts and adjunct malts. You can make up a recipe or go find a recipe that fits what you have. Do me a favor, this is not content that I have done normally in the past. If you're enjoying this type of content, these little tips and tricks videos, leave me a comment down below, as well as hit the thumbs up button. It lets me know that you guys are enjoying these type of videos. Now, I do use salts for my water because I use RO water. And so I was looking for a option to store those in that was really a cheap solution as well. And again, the Dollar Tree store actually came in handy again. So these containers are actually from the Dollar Tree as well. You know, they're super simple, super cheap. They're very durable. I've dropped them and everything. They do have a nice tight seal on them. I mean, that's gypsum and it's not all clumped up or anything like that. There's some sodium bicarbonate I've got in there. Do the same thing with those. I label those up, and that will actually keep my salts in bulk, which are a lot cheaper again to buy than buying, you know, small as you need it. And that works really well. One of the things about the vacuum sealer that I talked about earlier to seal the bag with, one of the key things to do with the vacuum sealer is when you purchase one, make sure that you get one that has the sealing capability aside from vacuuming, because you really don't need to vacuum those bags if you want to store the grain that way. All you need to do is just put them in there, hit the seal button, and on the larger bags you may have to do like a multiple seal where you seal it across and there might still be a little bit that's unsealed, and then you just have to kind of go at an angle to do those corners. But this is one that I found that's actually pretty cheap, does a great job. I've been using it for quite a while now. You can use this for grains if you want to. The other use that this is really good for is doing hops. And, you know, a suggestion on the hops, I would definitely portion them out to maybe an ounce or 2 ounces. And then even if you have like a recipe that you use quite often, let's say you do the, you know, glitter creamsicle unicorn New England IPA, and you know it's got, you know, a huge late hop addition, then why not just package all that late addition all in the same vacuum bag and just make a late addition bag for that recipe that you might be brewing. So I think that's a great way to buy your hops in bulk, because they're definitely a lot cheaper than buying them by the ounce. And then storing them with the vacuum sealer is certainly the way to go. Throw them in the freezer, they'll last for a really long time. The other great thing about having the vacuum sealer that has the sealing capability, you can actually make your own bags. You're not relegated to whatever size bag you have. So you can cut the vacuum seal material into all different shapes and sizes and just make your own bags, and certainly save yourself some money on the bags as well if you're not having to use a large, big roll of bags that maybe is not, you know, that doesn't really work that well for the size that you're using. I find a lot of times with some of the vacuum sealers that have only the vacuum seal and then, you know, vacuum and seal option, you're having to put the bag way up in there, whereas with one that can seal on its own or separately, you can put the bag in there and create a very, very fine seam or very fine edge and use as much of the bag as possible. What are you doing to store your bulk ingredients? Let me know in the comments down below. Share with others what your ideas are. Let me know if you have a Dollar Tree and you're going to go buy and pick up some of these containers, because I think they really are a great deal and really a great value and work absolutely awesome for what they are. This has been Brian for Short Circuited Brewers. We'll see you on the next video.